Hello, good evening, and thanks for being with us tonight. I'm Blake Berman. This is The Hill on NewsNation. So here's what we're watching tonight. The president's priorities being put to the test at this very hour. The Senate holding a marathon session, taking up the one big, beautiful bill. Will Republicans get it across the finish line?
The White House and the president himself have been in touch with lawmakers all weekend long to get this bill passed, and they are working very hard to do so.
Live updates here on The Hill throughout the hour, including this right here, how the White House is now linking the self-proclaimed Democratic Socialist and New York City mayoral candidate Zohran Mamdani to the bill. The contrast that they are now trying to draw. Plus, a note from the president, and trust me when I tell you, it ain't a love letter. What Trump penned today for that man right there, Jay Powell. Mick Mulvaney is with me tonight to explain the escalating feud between the president and the Fed chair. Also tonight, giving it a failing grade. Why the Trump administration is now accusing Harvard of violating the Civil Rights Act. But first tonight, here from The Hill, it is a big day in this town as there is some Monday night momentum. Is that what's happening? Or is there an early summer stall? That is a live look right now. The floor of the United States Senate. Many of those campaign promises. Here's why this is such a big deal. Because many of those campaign promises that President Trump made down the home stretch of the campaign is now in the hands of 52 Republicans. Questions remaining at this very hour on if the one big beautiful bill will survive the Senate and head to the House. Our Michael Schnell has the latest rumblings this hour, but first out to our Joe Khalil on the push from the president this evening. Joe?
Hey, Blake, I can tell you the White House feels pretty bullish about President Trump's chances to get his bill across the finish line in the Senate. They say that publicly. They're saying that behind closed doors. We know President Trump hasn't necessarily been directly involved in every step, but it's fair to say that he has been Republicans' closer. When it comes to crunch time, he's the one who, whether it's on social media or whether it's calls or texts directly to members or senators, he has been the final push and the pressure. There is some drama, though. We know there are some senators who've had concerns about Medicaid cuts, particularly the ripple effects that those cuts could have on rural hospitals in very red areas. And that's one reason Senator Thom Tillis actually announced he was now not going to run for re-election. That was his issue. We asked Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary, about the rural hospital issue. This is what she told us.
This bill strengthens Medicaid. It will protect those benefits that hardworking Americans need, and that's why the president wants this bill to pass. The senator was wrong. The president put out a Truth Social post addressing it, and then the senator announced he's no longer running for office anymore. So I think that case has been closed.
And Blake, not to get ahead of the process here, but I just spoke with some House Republicans as well. Remember, the bill's going to have to come back to them. They also have some of the similar concerns. But again, the White House feeling very confident that they are on track for exactly where they need to be to get this bill across the finish line by July 4th.
Our Joe K live on the North Lawn. Joe, thank you. And with lawmakers now in the 10th hour of their marathon session, considering amendments to the bill. Here are some of the key items in it that they're debating. Extending, this is really at the crux of it, extending President Trump's 2017 tax cuts, along with increasing military spending and immigration enforcement. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime. How many times did you hear that in the campaign? More state contributions as well to SNAP, and tax increases for college endowments. Now, as the July 4th deadline looms over Congress, Medicaid, as Joe talked about, they're also at the center of the debate here. The bill would also cut more than $1 trillion from that program, stripping health coverage, according to this Congressional Budget Office, from an estimated 12 million Americans. North Carolina's Republican Senator Thom Tillis outspoken against the bill, specifically as it relates to Medicaid. He voted no last night, a Republican, on a procedural vote. Our Hannah Brandt asking him today, what comes next?
What are you going to do to stop this bill?
I'm just working on the only thing I'm doing. I've done what I'm going to do. I've told my staff I've rested my case. The fiscal research is out there. I'll leave it to the members of the House to decide how to act on it.
With us now, Michael Schnell, congressional reporter for The Hill, one of the busiest people in all of Washington. live outside the steps of the Capitol. All right, Michael, so what are you hearing here at 6:05 on the East Coast in Washington with the United States Senate?
Yeah, hey, Blake, good evening. The Senate right now still working through this vote-a-rama. It's the process where senators in both parties can introduce as many amendments as they want to try to put their mark on this bill. Now, this is the last step before the Senate can hold a final vote on this big, beautiful bill. It's unclear how much longer the vote-a-rama is going to run, but it's also unclear if this bill has the votes to pass in the Senate. Now, look, the math here. If all Republicans can only afford to lose 3 votes if all Democrats vote no and if there's full attendance. Now, we already know that 2 of those no votes are accounted for. Senator Tom Tillis, who you heard from just before, and Senator Rand Paul, which means that if 2 or more join the fray, this thing is over. Now, we're already hearing from some folks who are on the fence 2 names to keep an eye on: Senator Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski. Susan Collins, just speaking to reporters a few minutes ago, say she is still considering voting against this. She's still leaning against it, but she's not making a final decision until she parses through all the amendments and sees what the final product looks like. But look, Blake, as we are nearing closer, hours away likely from that final vote, this thing is far from certain to clear the United States Senate.
All right, our Michael Schnell, she would know, live in front of the Capitol, back with us here later in the show. Michael, thank you. Joining us now is the Republican congressman from the state of Florida, Greg Steube, back with us once again here on the Hill. Congressman, thanks for the time.
Yeah, anytime.
So let's just go broad here for a second, right? Because this is in the hands of the Republican Party right now. And it's the party trying to preserve the Trump tax cuts, add funding for the border, and add funding for the military, right, in one phase. But then there's also Republicans who are worried about cuts to Medicaid. They are worried about, of all things, believe it or not, green energy cuts. That's come up from your side of the aisle as well. And then there's Republicans who are saying, you know what, there's not enough spending cuts. Where are you tonight?
Yeah, a lot to unpack there. Talk with you in the broad picture. We want the tax cuts. Obviously, the American people voted for that. That's why they voted for Donald Trump. They want to make those tax cuts permanent. If we don't do that, the average family of 4 in America will see a $3,500 increase to their taxes. Small businesses in America will see a 20% increase to their federal income taxes. That will have a huge devastating effect on our overall economy because those small businesses who employ people are going to have to make very tough decision because they're going to be spending 20% more on their federal income taxes than they are right now. So we've got to get the tax cuts done. We got to get the defense spending that we need done. And obviously we got to secure the border. That's something that President Trump campaigned on. He won the popular vote. He won the Electoral College. He's got a mandate. And those are the type of things that we need to deliver on.
If the Senate passes this, and I don't know if there's a John McCain moment, right? You remember with repeal and replace Obamacare when he put the thumbs down at the last second. I don't know if Republicans are there tonight, Senator, but let's just say that Senate Republicans pass this. Then it becomes a real question of what you do in the House. We know of a 4:30 phone call with Mike Johnson and a lot of your colleagues. Are you confident that would pass in your chamber?
I think there's going to be a lot of discussions. Again, we don't know what this last manager's amendment is going to look like, which is going to change the bill pretty significantly. But where we're at right now, we're well below the spending cuts that the House wanted to have. We're not at the framework that the House approved. There was a bunch of us that signed a letter that said we need this framework in place to be able to be deficit neutral on the bill. So obviously we can't make any decisions until we know what that manager's amendment looks like, what the bill language looks like. But I do think you're going to have some challenges on the House side. We can only lose 3 votes. You've got 218 you got to get to. We can only lose 3. If we lose 4, the bill's dead. And you've got things in here that moderates don't like, and you've got things in here that conservatives don't like. So it is certainly going to be a challenge, but there is, and you alluded to this, there's going to be a lot of pressure from the White House to get this done. The president wants it done by July 4th so they can have a bill signing, and we need to get the tax cuts to the American people. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on House members. Look, there's things in there I don't like. There's things in there moderates don't like.
Are you good with spending,
tax
Congress?
Policy benefits the American people.
Are you good with spending, Congressman? Because I'm looking at federal debt by year, and let's show it. The blue is obviously for Democratic presidents. The red is obviously for Republican presidents. When you're talking about the national debt, Congressman, it rose by $9 trillion in the first Trump term. And I hear you say, there's spending cuts in there, but that thing is going up and right as far as the eye can see, with or without this bill. So why do you support it?
Why do I support it?
Yeah. On the spending
because
front.
of the tax cuts, obviously. I mean, that's why I supported the defense spending and the border issues is why I will support it. But again, you can't make that decision until you know what all these final numbers are from the Senate and what they're going to end up doing. But this cuts $1.7 trillion from the debt. You're also going to see, because of the tariffs that Trump has put in place, I think just last week it was $26 billion to the Treasury. The economic impact that is going to come from this bill is between $2.5 to $3 trillion.
You're not concerned about
those things.
You're not concerned about $55 trillion in debt in the next decade or so, hitting that number?
Well, I'm concerned about the debt, absolutely, and that's why I signed on to the letter as to the House framework as it related to spending. I'm absolutely concerned about the debt, and we have to get that under control. And this bill helps by doing that, by cutting $1.7 trillion. It would have cut more than that. The House's bill that we sent over to the Senate would have cut more than that, but the parliamentarians struck a lot of our pieces of this bill, which cut a lot of the spending cuts.
Let me leave you with this, Congressman, because you talk about the pressure from someone else, Elon Musk. Every member, and I'm quoting here, every member of Congress who campaigned on reducing government spending and then immediately voted for the biggest debt increase in history should hang their head in shame, and they will lose their primary next year if it is the last thing I do on this earth. Elon Musk this afternoon. How would you respond?
Well, it's interesting coming from a guy who's the wealthiest man in the world, who's made billions of dollars off U.S. government subsidies for electric vehicles. So it's certainly interesting him making those type of claims when he's made a significant amount of money off subsidies from the federal government in the form of electric vehicle subsidies. And those are the type of things that need to be cut in this bill. And actually we had a conservative response to that on the House side, and the Senate has made that worse in the sense of taking longer to pare that away. So a lot of that spending that could be cut is programs that he's benefited from.
All right, I got to leave it there. We're going to be watching, and I hope you come on back here in the upcoming days and weeks. Greg Steube is a Republican from the Sunshine State down there in Florida.
Good to see you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. You as well. All right. So still to come here over the next 48 minutes or so. The White House, they did something subtle today, but it could be a part of a much bigger trend. In the briefing today, they linked Zohran Mamdani to the ongoings here in Washington. I'm going to show you that clip and explain on the other side. Speaking of the Big Apple, live look right now where business titans about to trade the skyscraper skyline for the congressman there, his home state in Florida. One mayor trying to woo him, or at least saying that is happening right now. He's going to join us, and a new chapter in the fight between the president and Harvard. I'm Blake Berman. I thank you for being with us tonight. Normally on a Monday in the middle of summer, you don't have much going on? Can't say that this evening. Back and forth.
Differences between Republicans and Democrats in 2025. The Democrats are doubling down on craziness and radical policies that are undermining the very fabric of our country. Just look at the Democrat nominee for New York City Mayor, Zohran Mamdani. He's a Democrat socialist, really a communist, who proudly calls to defund the police.
That right there, of course, the White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. Did you see what she did there today? Tying President Trump's one big beautiful bill with the New York Democratic Socialist mayoral nominee, Zohran Mamdani. Mamdani labels himself as a Democratic socialist. Some of his policy proposals include freezing rents, city-run grocery stores, $30 minimum wage, and tax hikes on corporations and millionaires, just to name a few. With us now here on the Hill is the Democratic congressman from the state of California. Back with us once again tonight, Ami Bera. Congressman, nice to see you as always. Thanks for being on tonight.
Blake, thanks for having me on.
So, look, you want to come on tonight and you want to talk about all the different ways that you believe that this one big beautiful bill is destructive. You're going to probably highlight Medicaid, right? And I get that, because that's what your side of the aisle is doing. But I saw what the White House did today, Congressman, and they phrased this, I see you nodding along, because they phrased this as the president's priorities and the new face of the Democratic Party. And that's kind of the issue that your party has with this new sort of name in the party, is it not?
Yeah, although he's not going to be the face of the Democratic Party. They certainly are going to try to make him that. This is about what we need to do in Congress tomorrow. And the one thing that I would agree with Ms. Levitt is this bill actually does strike the contrast with what's going to happen. Our priorities are working class Americans, health care, and making sure folks have food security. President Trump wants to take all that away to give tax breaks to the richest Americans and add $3.3 trillion to the deficit. I don't always agree with Elon Musk. I do agree with him on this. Anyone who votes for this bill is voting for a really bad bill.
I was going to ask you about Musk, but not that, because he went further. He said today, anybody who votes for this, he said, and they will lose their primary next year if it's the last thing I do on this earth. I just heard you talk up Elon Musk. Do you now want him primarying Republicans?
You know, Elon Musk should do what Elon Musk wants to do, but if he's concerned about the debt and deficit, this bill is going to explode the debt and the deficit. I'd urge my Republican colleagues to get together with pragmatic Democrats like myself and others, and we can look for ways to improve government efficiency. We can look for ways to get waste, fraud, and abuse out of healthcare. But
hold on, Congressman, because let me jump in, because I just heard you say Musk can do what he wants to do, but that wasn't what your side of the aisle was saying, just a few months ago or so. And I guess that now gets to the point of you now have a decision to make, right?
Again, I'm not asking Elon Musk to fund Democratic campaigns.
Okay.
I'm asking Elon Musk to do whatever he wants. He did in the last election cycle and certainly helped President Trump get elected. President Trump made a lot of promises in that election cycle, saying he was going to help working class folks. He was going to make life easier. He was going to bring down the price of foods. I think what he's doing is going to be the exact opposite and will have the exact opposite effect. I do think he's going to add trillions of dollars to the debt and the deficit if this bill passes. Elon Musk will decide to do what Elon Musk decides to do.
If it meant taking back the House, would you want him to help?
You know what? If it means addressing the debt and the deficit and doing good policy, I'm going to do everything I can to get the House majority back, to put Democrats back in charge in the House of Representatives. Certainly hope we get the Senate back. Tom Tillis might be seeing the writing on the wall in his retirement announcement. Let's see what happens. Again, Elon Musk will do what Elon Musk does.
Okay. We'll leave it there. He is Ami Bera. We always appreciate the time. A Democrat there from the state of California. Talk again soon. Thank you, sir.
Blake, thanks. Be well.
Of you as well, sir. So I started talking to him about the Democratic Socialist from New York, right? Because you heard that soundbite from the White House today. They're basically saying, look, the Republicans stand for this, and that man right there in his party, they're trying to link them stand for that. But down in Boca Raton, Florida, one mayor there is saying that he's getting some phone calls on his end from New York City. He is Scott Singer. He is the mayor in Boca Raton there in South Florida, with me live here on the Hill. Mr. Mayor, thanks for being with us tonight. What's going on there? Explain.
Thank you, Blake. Things are great in Boca Raton. We've been attracting great companies, families, and investment for decades. It picked up more after COVID, but the phones have been ringing off the hook for our brokers and for other people looking to move here because they're fleeing what's ahead in New York. People want places that want to partner with business, not tax them out of existence. And in Boca Raton,
has Mamdani changed any of it?
Robust economy. Yes. He's definitely accelerated. The morning after the primary election last week, I got one broker telling me he had 3 calls early in the morning about people looking to move there. And I think that's representative of what we're seeing. People want good governance like you have in Boca Raton. The lowest property tax rate of any full-service city in Florida, great services, wonderful quality of life, great talent. I moved from New York City in 2010, the best move of my life, and others are going to be making more of it if he gets elected.
Who's calling, though? Like, look, the story of New York to Florida is not new. It's been the case for years, and it will be the case for years going forward, right? But right now, who's calling?
We have a robust, diverse economy, from financial services to tech to med tech to fintech to telecom to everything, and we're getting businesses in all of those different spaces. People have wanted to flee a high-tax, high-crime jurisdiction, and they found a haven in Boca Raton. Our family did, and happy to have other families come as we've gotten younger and younger.
You're selling your city. Maybe you're running for something in politics as well. I don't know. I hear the lines there, but I thank you for being with us tonight. Scott Singer is the mayor down there in Boca, a place
Boca sells itself, but thank you.
There. Trust me, I'm there often. I'm a born and raised in the 305. Mayor, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. All right. Still ahead here on the Hill tonight. We are watching the Senate live look there on Capitol Hill Senate floor as they go over the president's mega bill. The very latest throughout the hour as it happens. And from the big, beautiful bill to a big, bold note. Did you see what the president posted today? Oh boy, Mick Mulvaney, other side of the break with what that means right there. Welcome back. Hope you're having a great Monday. 6:30 here on the East Coast and in our nation's capital. A live look over at the White House. You know they say a picture is normally worth 1,000 words? Well, in this case, might it be worth percentage points? As President Trump waits for Congress to pass the one big beautiful bill, he shared one big bold post this afternoon. The president sharing this image right here. He posted it to social media. A letter penned to the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell with a chart. You see the chart here in the handwriting there, the charts of the central banks all over the world. And this is what the president wrote. He said, "You are, as usual, too late. You have cost the USA a fortune and continue to do so. You should lower the rates." Hundreds of billions of dollars being lost. And that the president right there. The press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, of course, asked about this. She ended up holding up the post in the briefing today. Watch.
He has a proven economic formula that worked in his first term as president, and it is working again. The one problem that remains is high interest rates for the American people. The American people want to borrow money cheaply, and they should be able to do that. But unfortunately, we have interest rates that are still too high.
All right, so he's talking about the federal funds rate, which is set by the Fed, rates that we pay for basically everyday items, kind of homes and auto loans, right, come to mind here. This is basically what it's been back to the turn of the century or so, right? Here's where we are right now, but this is what I want you to focus on. Basically since 2009, Frank, if you could show this. We were at a zero interest rate policy for a very long time, except for in here in 2018. And then right before the election, Trump brings this up all the time. Right before the election, a little bit of a drop in rates. But this is sort of the picture right now. Mick Mulvaney, NewsNation contributor, former Trump White House chief of staff, with me live. Hello, sir.
Hello, Berman.
So I texted you and I'm like, what's up, Mulvaney? What's going on here? And here's the three things that you said to me. You said, one, he's either trying to get Powell to bend. Two, he's either going to blame him, setting it up to blame him if things go wrong. Or three, laying the groundwork for an early nomination. What do you think's going on?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of all of that, but I think the real attention should be on number three. All the things we're hearing. In fact, we had some interviews on this show last week with the head of the CEA about this, and they sort of dodged the issue, but you sort of get the sense that the White House wants to name Powell's replacement well in advance of when they ordinarily would. Powell's term is up next May, so that means, generally speaking, his replacement might be named in the first quarter of next year. The more this goes on, Blake, the more you start to look for a new announcement from Donald Trump as early as September, October.
I want to show you the federal debt by year. This was something I brought up to the Republican congressman I had on the show to start the show. Red is Republican president, blue is Democratic president, right? And here's part of the reason why Trump wants the interest rates down. There's lots of reasons, but we got to pay that stuff off, Mick. And the basic math is the higher that is, with the higher the rate, the more you pay. And then the inverse is the lower that is, which that ain't going low anytime soon. Or the lower the rate, the less you pay. And he needs, in part, he needs growth, Mick, for lots of reasons, but also to pay for this bill.
He does. The math is pretty easy. When you owe $36 trillion, every additional 1% on interest rates costs you $360 billion a year. It's just a stunning sum of money. Keep in mind, we only spend about $900 billion on defense. So these are huge, huge numbers when you're this heavily in debt. And Trump needs growth. You're absolutely right. He's hoping that people can borrow money cheaply, invest it, and pump up the economy. That's sort of what his business model is banking on. But he's he's also banking on doing that without inflation. Keep in mind the Federal Reserve is charged first and foremost, not exclusively, but first and foremost with keeping inflation in line. And that's what Jay Powell is looking at. Trump's looking at the inflation numbers saying, you know what, they're not as bad as everybody thought they would be. And he's right. And that's why he's upset that Powell hasn't moved already to lower rates.
All right. I brought up the bill. What are you hearing, Mulvaney?
That the House is upset about missing out on their vacation. That's the first thing I'm hearing because I talked to House members first. They got to come back.
You're joking, but I want the audience to know you're not joking because just like everybody else at home, they want a weekend for the 4th of July. And believe it or not, when we're talking about $36 trillion in debt and trillions of dollars here and there, that is a factor.
And they're coming back. So a lot of the folks who plan on vacationing this week, the House was actually all of Congress was supposed to be off this week. That's not happening because of the one big beautiful bill. So the House, it's sort of tongue in cheek, but as you mentioned, it's not a joke. They're not happy, but they will come back and vote on this once the Senate passes it. What I've heard most recently about the Senate is that they're struggling with Lisa Murkowski in Alaska. She thought she had cut all these sweetheart deals for her home state, exemptions from various things, carve-outs for various things, incentives for, I think it was fishermen or boat captains or something like that. And a lot of that came out in that so-called bird bath that the Senate parliamentarian put into place. So her yes vote is now, I understand it, moving more towards the I don't know kind of vote. And with Rand Paul already announcing he's voting no, Tom Tillis already announced he's voting no, the Republicans can only lose one more in the Senate. I still think they'd get there, but it's nail-biting time over on the in the House of Lords.
Nail-biting time. With me now, Julia Manchester, national political reporter for The Hill. Michael Schnell, congressional reporter for The Hill. Mulvaney, hang on by because I want you to listen to this as well. Hang with us here for a few seconds. What are you hearing?
I was just in the building, ran over here for this. It's not clear if this bill can pass through the Senate. Senator Susan Collins, the Republican from Maine, spoke to reporters within the past 2 hours. She said she's currently leaning against the bill. She has these concerns about Medicaid. She has other asks involving the top tax rate. As Mick mentioned, Lisa Murkowski remains in question. There were some of those sweeteners in this bill for her, some of those Alaska provisions. It remains unclear if the parliamentarian is going to allow them to remain in the bill. Republicans can only lose 3 and still squeak this thing through. 2 of those folks are already accounted for, Tom Tillis and Rand Paul. If Murkowski and Collins both vote no, this thing is toast. And even if it does squeak through the House, through the Senate, Blake, it's facing serious headwinds in the House.
Julia?
What's interesting is that you're seeing this divide, I think, in many ways between obviously the moderates and the fiscal hawks. We heard earlier today, obviously Rand Paul and Tom Tillis both opposing this legislation for really very different reasons. But like you said, Michael, Murkowski, Collins opposing it, them being moderate Republicans. But then there's a question about, some of these fiscal hawks. I think Ron Johnson was uncommitted earlier today. So that's something certainly to watch. We know that John Thune's been working with that part of the conference. But once it goes to the House, those fiscal hawks once again are going to play into this occasion. But adding one more thing into this equation, Elon Musk is now inserting himself into this debate.
Hold that thought. And I'm listening. I promise you, I'm listening to every word Julia is saying, but the reason why I went to my computer was because they just said that you got a new Musk post. Here's what he said. He says, if this insane spending bill passes, the America Party will be formed the next day. Our country needs an alternative to the Democrat-Republican uniparty so that the people actually have a voice. He's threatening to primary everyone under the sun as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, we'll see how powerful Elon Musk can be as a primary, someone who's going to cultivate primary challenges. I think earlier this year, we saw that Elon Musk's political operation in Wisconsin and that Supreme Court was quite weak. However, I think there might be more room when it comes to maybe some of these more fiscal conservatives, the fiscal conservative influencers that you see. For example, maybe there's a way for him to grow and cultivate personality there.
Mick, I'm old enough to remember when your party and you were in the administration in 2017 told me that the first thing that y'all were going to do was repeal and replace Obamacare. And in the overnight hours, there was a senator, John McCain, who went, and just like that, the first thing out the gate didn't happen. Do you believe?
I was thinking the exact same thing as Julia and Michael went down that list. Because right now, when you say I lean no, that means I want to vote yes. Give me something. Okay.
So do you think we're getting? Do you think what are the odds of a McCain moment, for lack of a better term? Do you think that's still possible tonight?
At 1 in 10, I think, keep in mind, they'd have to lose 2 votes now. One doesn't do it, but you got to wonder if Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski, who like each other and work together regularly, sort of join hands and say, you know what, the 2 of us together are going to play John McCain in this one. Right. Again, I still think the odds are against it, but that's certainly the dynamic to watch. I think the House, they're pussycats. They'll vote yes when it comes back over to the Senate. But the Senate, I think, is going to be a challenge.
All right, we'll leave it there. Michael, Julia, hang around. Mick, we'll catch you tomorrow. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. You got it. Still to come. On the other side of the break, the White House fighting back once again over Harvard today.
Jewish and Israeli students were assaulted and spit on. They hid their kippahs for fear of being harassed and concealed their Jewish identity from classmates for fear of ostracization.
You heard the administration there. They say the Ivy League did not protect students from anti-Semitic attacks. What comes next? And that's not the only coast the administration has its eyes on. When we return.
Verdict Watch. Did he do it? From the start.
This is day one of a very big case.
To the very end.
The feds rested with yet another mountain of receipts.
Stay with Banfield as the jury decides Diddy's fate. Weeknights 10/9 Central.
Nation President Trump with 2 liberal institutions, if you kind of want to frame it that way, in his sights today. One on each of the country's coasts, Harvard on the east and the city of Los Angeles out west. The administration has now informed the nation's richest, oldest, and most prestigious university that its investigation determined that Harvard violated federal civil rights law over its treatment of Jewish and Israeli students on campus. The administration writing to Harvard's president, Alan Garber, reading in part, quote, failure to institute adequate changes immediately will result in the loss of all federal financial resources. Goes on to say that Harvard may, of course, continue to operate free of federal privileges, end quote. Now, in the same day, just hours later, really, the administration also filed a suit against Los Angeles, alleging the obstruction of enforcement of federal immigration laws, as well as creating a lawless environment. It's the latest in a series of lawsuits against sanctuary jurisdictions, including New York, New Jersey, and Colorado, that the administration alleges act to limit cooperation with immigration and customs enforcement agents. Full panel here with me now. Scott Bolden, NewsNation political contributor. So too is Denise Gitsom, a NewsNation political contributor. Back with me as well, Julia Manchester, national political reporter for The Hill. Michael Schnell, congressional reporter for The Hill. I'll start with this side of the table this time, if you don't mind. The sense that I got today, Scott, is that the administration and Harvard are at odds, and it's not going to be resolved anytime soon. That was the sense that I got today.
Although I read at least one report that said they were having private discussions behind closed doors, but we'll see what happens with that. This Title VI violation, a lot of what's been reported have been these incidents against Jewish students, how Jewish students were made to feel. I'm not sure that that's enough to get you to a violation of Title VI, because the school has to either act indifferently or purposefully ignore what's going on, and I don't think Harvard did that.
They ignored what happened on campus?
I don't think that they addressed the issue appropriately, and I don't think they threw people off campus during these protests, being overly cautious, if you will. But I'm not sure that's enough to say that you violently violated the civil rights of these Jewish students. I do think they have to make changes. The president says they've made a lot of different changes. Trump's White House says they haven't made enough. There's a big gap there. Nobody's supporting anti-Semitism, but to come after them this way and refer to DOJ, which is the next step if they cut a deal.
It doesn't say you have to violently, violate rights in the law. That's not the precedent.
But you have to be indifferent.
But here's the deal: like 86% rise in anti-Semitism on a college campus it's evidence of indifference. Also, I'm really always surprised when I hear stuff like this, because I feel like nobody ever makes these excuses when any other group, any other ethnic group is ever treated this way. There's no, well, it wasn't that bad. I just feel like there's so much permissiveness towards anti-Semitism, which accounts for the 900% increase in anti-Semitic acts over the last decade in America. And I would just say, even if you're not concerned about anti-Israeli actions, which I know you are, anti-Muslim actions on Harvard's campus were actually accounted for in a report they did that were double what happened to with anti-Israeli attacks.
So
So pick your side.
That was on the East Coast today. Let me
Yeah.
take you out west, and I'll get to you two in both in a second, because the administration also going after Los Angeles. You're from California.
Yeah.
Your backyard.
As they should.
Is there a difference, Scott, between not cooperating with ICE, right? Like, we're not going to help you, and then obstructing, making it harder and more difficult? And that seems to be the path that the administration is going.
Well, that's what Trump sees. He sees them as one and the same. Here's the deal. Nothing wrong with a sanctuary city. Nothing illegal about it at all. At its core, what it says is that law enforcement and the government is not going to get in the way of ICE enforcement. It's not our jurisdiction, and it's completely the federal ICE agents that have to implement this. We don't have to cooperate with you. We don't have to give you information. Trump administration disagrees with that, and they see limited access as the same as being obstructionist.
Obstruction is maybe in the eye of the beholder to you, but I think it's pretty clear to the average person, to the reasonable person. Well, the courts did decide. Supreme Court said in Arizona versus the United States
Hold on, let her finish.
In 2012, they said that you cannot have any sort of laws that get in the way, interfere in any way in the enforcement of federal law because of the supremacy clause. And if you read the words of just the San Francisco, LA, all of my states, elected officials, they say, we will resist. Look, if you are providing legal advice to immigrants to teach them how to skirt ICE, if you are knocking on doors, this is what they're doing, and you're saying, hey, ICE is here, this is obstruction.
You think that's obstruction?
Absolutely. Well, see, maybe not in your estimation, but in mine.
My goodness.
Yeah.
They've got a First Amendment, too. Let the courts figure it out. I can't wait.
This is part of the legal here, but I want to
get it on. Bring it on. Bring it on.
I want to get to real quick
We'll win that one.
what Trump is doing here.
Well, look, when it comes to the sanctuary cities, sanctuary states even, we have seen Trump very much and Republicans make these states, whether it's California, or states or cities, California, Los Angeles, Minnesota, New York, Illinois. I bring up those three because the three governors of those states were testifying before the House Oversight Committee controlled by Republicans a few weeks ago. So this is about them in many ways, making them the boogeyman in many ways. And California for President Trump has always been, or any Republican has always been like that, especially coming off of the rioting we saw and the unrest over his immigration policy.
I think this is President Trump diving into two fights that he knows and loves very well. Liberals in California, let it be Los Angeles, one of the biggest cities in the state. And then you have liberal college campuses that are argued to be liberal. Now, I will note, anti-Semitism should always be condemned, never tolerated. But this is a fight that he has been wanting to lean into, especially because it's Harvard. So I think that while there's a lot of drama going on in that building behind us with the big, beautiful bill, the president is going to areas that he knows very well.
All right. Thank y'all. We'll leave it there. Appreciate it. Still to come here on the Hill. The White House's education pledge. They did something today that we talked about several months ago, and I'm going to tell you why none of it should be partisan. Yes, it's coming out of the White House. Yes, it's Trump. Doesn't matter. My take, other side of the break. And coming up on Elizabeth Vargas Report, she's following the breaking news involving Brian Kohberger, the suspect accused of killing the 4 Idaho college students. Major news in that case. And if you missed what is trending, we'll have it for you. Stay with us. The day, wondering what's out there. We want to show you what's trending on the Hill. Think you have a good idea about what stories are making the biggest waves on Capitol Hill today? Well, here are some of the headlines that are getting the most online traffic. This is not a shock, right? Thune looks to nail down holdouts on Trump mega bill. That is really the big story in this town at this hour. Trump shares a handwritten note to Powell. We talked about this earlier in the show. The president writing a note to the Fed chair saying lower rates, essentially. And how about this? Young Democrats see David Hogg's power growing outside the DNC. Hogg, of course, is the one who was pushed out as vice chair of the Democratic National Committee. That is just some of what's trending on the Hill. And make sure you check out these stories and more. All you have to do is scan the QR code on your screen or visit thehill.com. All right, something that has been trending for a lot longer than just today, and time for my take now, is AI, artificial intelligence. The White House today announcing more than 6 companies are pledging to provide AI education materials to high school students, kindergartners even, really all ages in between. Google, Microsoft, OpenAI, NVIDIA, the biggest names out there, among the companies chipping in. Now, the idea of teaching AI to kids in our schools is something that we have been all over on this show, including in this very segment. Here was mid-March of this year. Roll it. I want you to take a look at what's happening in China right now. Maybe you missed this headline, but China's 6-year-olds are already being offered AI classes in school in a bid to train the next generation of DeepSeek founders. Now, on the home front, our government is in the throes of a lawsuit. So, as the headlines in this town center around the political battle involving the Department of Education, just remember our main competitor in new tech now has its own new approach. All right, so we were on the record here months ago. This is something that China basically was already doing. So it may not surprise you to hear me say this is not a left or a right issue, a Democratic or a Republican issue, rather really a sign of the times. And an issue that the U.S. needed to wake up to, really, in order to keep pace. Or you could say, make the grade. And once again, that's my take. I thank you so much for watching us tonight here on The Hill. There is big news in this town, and we have been covering it all hour, and this is going to go long into the night. As we keep our eyes on the Senate floor, the one big, beautiful bill, but really many of President Trump's campaign promises. What happens this evening? We'll cover it tomorrow. I hope to see you then. I'm Blake Berman.